She cried before the match, then destroyed her. Alexandra Eala's secret message left Jasmine Paolini in tears in the Dubai locker room. Welcome, welcome, welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the one channel on the entire internet that refuses to serve you tennis news without the sauce, the drama, the tears, and the absolute jaw-dropping moments that make this sport the greatest spectacle on earth. If you are new here, first of all, where have you been? And second, you picked the absolute perfect moment to join this family, because what we are about to unpack today is not just a tennis match recap. This is a full-blooded, goosebump-inducing, tear-jerking, fist-pumping story that has taken over every tennis fan group, every Filipino social media page, and every WTA press room on the planet in the last 48 hours. You need to turn up your volume. You need to put the phone down. You need to lock in, because this story is going to hit you somewhere deep, and we are not going to rush a single word of it. We are at the 2026 Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships, the Aviation Club Tennis Center, one of the most prestigious, most beloved, most storied hardcourt events on the entire WTA calendar. A tournament that has seen legends walk its corridors: Steffi Graf, Martina Hingis, Venus and Serena Williams, and more recently, Jasmine Paolini herself, who claimed this very title in years past, and was back in 2026 looking to remind the world exactly why she belongs at the top of the women's game. And on the other side of the net, a 20-year-old Filipina firecracker who, before this week, you might have thought was just the next big thing on the horizon. After this week, she is not the next big thing. She is the thing. Alexandra Eala. Say that name slowly. Let it sit with you. Because in the world of tennis, names like hers come around once in a generation. And what is happening right now, right before our eyes, in real time, is the kind of ascension that people will be writing books about 20 years from now. But before we even get to the scoreline, and trust us, the scoreline alone would be enough to fill this entire video. We have to talk about what happened before a single ball was struck. We have to talk about the secret, the message, the moment that broke Jasmine Paolini into tears in her locker room chair just minutes before one of the biggest matches of the Dubai tournament. Because without understanding what happened in that private, quiet, emotionally charged moment behind closed doors, you cannot truly appreciate what unfolded under the stadium lights. According to locker room insiders and information that broke just hours after the match, Alexandra Eala did something that no one expected. She didn't blast music in her headphones to drown out the nerves. She didn't pace back and forth visualizing her game plan. She didn't stare at the ceiling and ice out every human emotion the way hardened professionals are trained to do. Instead, this 20-year-old woman sat down, and she wrote a message. A deeply personal, raw, vulnerable, heartfelt message addressed directly to Jasmine Paolini. And the words she chose are the kind of words that remind you why sport, at its absolute highest level, is about so much more than trophies and rankings. Eala's message read, "I'm not dreaming of beating you to prove anything. I just want to give everything I have, so you can see how the dream you inspired in me has grown." The Philippine community is pouring into center court, chanting my name. But in my heart, they're also chanting yours because you are the inspiration for all of us in Asia. Go ahead, read that again. Take your time. Because those are not the words of a competitor trying to psyche out an opponent. Those are not gamesmanship. Those are not tactics. Those are the words of a young woman who grew up watching tennis on a screen somewhere in Manila, who dreamed of one day being where Jasmine Paolini was, and who, against all odds, had clawed her way to a position where she was not watching Paolini from the stands anymore. She was standing across the net from her. And instead of pretending that wasn't a staggering, emotional, overwhelming thing, she leaned into it with her whole heart and let the woman she admired know exactly what she meant to her. Now picture Jasmine Paolini receiving this message. This is a woman who has been to the finals of Wimbledon. This is a woman who reached the final of Roland Garros. This is the former Dubai champion who has weathered storms and climbed every mountain that women's tennis has put in her way. This is a player who smiles through adversity, who carries a bubbly, joyful energy that has endeared her to fans all over the world. And yet, when those words landed in her hands and her eyes moved across each sentence, something cracked. Something gave way underneath all that professionalism and all that battle-tested emotional armor. According to those who were there, Paolini literally dropped into her chair. Her hand flew up to cover her mouth. And the tears came. Uncontrollable, unstoppable, real tears. Rolling down the face of one of the world's top 10 tennis players in the locker room, just minutes before warm-up. Her coaching team stood in stunned silence. The people who have watched Jasmine Paolini prepare for hundreds of professional tennis matches told reporters after the fact that they had rarely, if ever, seen her cry before a match. She is disciplined. She is composed. She processes her emotions and she locks them away and she walks out onto that court as a warrior. But this was different. This cut through every wall she had ever built. And when the news broke online, it moved an entire tennis community to tears. Social media was flooded within hours. Filipino fans were sobbing. Italian fans were sobbing. Tennis fans from countries that have never produced a professional tennis player were sharing the message and losing their composure over their phones. Because what Alexandra Eala did was remind everyone that behind the rankings and the prize money and the fierce competition, there are human beings. There are dreams. There are debts of inspiration that can never be fully repaid, only acknowledged with the kind of grace and humility that Eala showed in that quiet locker room moment. But then the umpire called time, and the tennis had to be played. If you thought that emotional backstory might have softened either competitor, what happened next on the court was about as soft as a concrete wall. When Alexandra Eala and Jasmine Paolini walked out of that tunnel and into the roar of the Dubai crowd, the atmosphere was something that witnesses described as electric on a level they had rarely experienced at this particular tournament. And the reason was simple, loud, and unmistakably identifiable. The Filipino community had arrived. The United Arab Emirates hosts one of the largest Filipino expatriate communities on the planet, and on this particular Tuesday night in February 2026, it felt like every single one of them had made their way to the Aviation Club Tennis Center with one purpose. Alexandra Eala, their kabayan, their pride, their daughter, their champion. The chants were deafening. The Filipino flags were everywhere. The noise, the color, the sheer infectious energy of a community coming together to celebrate one of their own on one of the biggest stages in women's tennis. It was, by every account, something to behold. And Eala, to her enormous credit, did not shrink under the weight of all that expectation. She channeled it. She absorbed it and converted it into something extraordinary. From the very first point, it was abundantly clear that this was not going to be a gentle, tentative young player hoping to stay competitive against a top 10 opponent. This was a 20-year-old who had decided, before she even bounced the ball to serve, that the first set belonged to her. Eala came out playing a brand of aggressive, left-handed baseline tennis that Paolini simply had no answer for in those opening games. The forehand was a weapon, a genuine, tour-level weapon that painted lines and detonated winners before Paolini could even load up to respond. The serve, not traditionally considered the most dangerous part of Eala's game, was firing on all cylinders. She landed a remarkable 67% of her first serves in that opening set and won an astonishing 86% of those points. 86%. That is a dominant serving performance by any standard on the WTA Tour, let alone from a 20-year-old world number 47 taking on the 6th seed. Paolini, still perhaps emotionally raw from the locker room experience, or simply caught completely off guard by the velocity and precision of Eala's baseline game, was struggling desperately to find her footing. The Italian, who is never short of competitive fire, found herself piling up unforced errors at a rate that would have made her coaching team wince. She found the net repeatedly. She was broken twice in quick succession. And before she could even gather her thoughts and recalibrate, the first set was gone. 6-1. In just 25 breathless minutes. A near bagel handed to a former Dubai champion. The stadium was absolutely losing its collective mind. Eala, when asked about it afterward, described her mindset with characteristic composure. She said, "I think today I came out on fire." And if that qualifies as an understatement in the English language, it might be the greatest understatement in the history of the sport. Coming out on fire? She came out like a blowtorch pointed at a snowflake. It was dominant, and it was beautiful, and the Filipino community in the stands was already celebrating like the trophy had been handed over. But this is where the story pivots. This is where the script flips and the drama takes on an entirely different texture. Because if there is one thing the tennis world has learned from watching Jasmine Paolini over the years, it is this. She does not fold. She does not crumble. She does not look at a deficit and decide it is too steep to climb. The heart inside that small, tenacious Italian frame is several sizes larger than her rankings number suggests, and in the second set of this match, she showed the entire tennis world exactly why she has spent years at the very pinnacle of the women's game. The second set opened with Eala still looking dangerously dominant. She broke early to go 2-1 and began to look like a woman who might just cruise to a straight sets win that would go down as the most complete, dominant performance of her young career. The finish line was right there. You could almost taste it. The Filipino crowd could almost taste it. Then Paolini woke up. Like a sleeping giant being nudged with increasing urgency, the Italian began to find her range. She broke Eala back, leveling the set at 3 games apiece. The crowd, which had been building toward a crescendo, suddenly held its collective breath. Something had changed. The momentum, that invisible force that dictates so much of what happens in professional tennis, had shifted. And not just shifted a little. It had whipped around 180 degrees and pointed itself squarely at Jasmine Paolini. Eala broke again, going 4-3 up, and once more the crowd dared to hope. But Paolini refused to comply with the narrative that had been written for her. She dug deep into her reservoir of experience and held her serve, making it 4 games apiece. The tension in the stadium was now a physical thing you could feel pressing down on your chest. And then came the moment that will be replayed on tennis highlight channels for years. The 9th game. Eala serving for the match at 5-3. The crowd on its feet. The moment absolutely right for the fairy tale ending. Paolini had other plans. She raised her level to something extraordinary, saving not 1, not 2, but 3 consecutive match points from Eala. The first 2 came at 15-40. The third came at advantage out, when Paolini refused to capitulate and fought off what should have been the final point of the match with a performance of defensive excellence that drew gasps from the crowd. She held her serve. She broke Eala in the next game. The set was suddenly level at 5 games apiece. The stadium, which had been a cacophony of Filipino pride, had gone to a very different kind of noise, a tense, breathless, almost disbelieving hush interspersed with roars as each point was contested. Paolini took a 6-5 lead, meaning Eala was now serving just to stay in the set, let alone the match. For a fleeting, horrible moment, the dream wobbled. You could see on Eala's face the battle between the physical exhaustion of a high-intensity professional tennis match and the mental strength she would need to dig herself back out of this hole. She later told the press, "I tried to remind myself that I was doing well. I have to watch it again, but I don't think I did anything disastrous during those moments, and she earned those points. Every time the opportunity arose, I tried my best to be brave and go for my ball." Brave. That word. In the context of what was happening on that court, in front of that crowd, carrying the hopes of a nation, facing an opponent who had already saved 3 match points and seized the momentum, brave doesn't even begin to cover it. But brave is what she was. She held her serve, saving 2 set points in the process, and sent the second set into a tiebreak. If the match itself was a drama in 2 acts, the tiebreak was the finale. And it was everything. Both players came out with the kind of focus and intensity that you only ever see at the very highest level of professional sport. Each of the first 8 points in that tiebreak ended with an outright winner. No errors, no lucky net chords, just pure, unadulterated excellence from 2 players who refused to give the other an inch. After 8 points, they were deadlocked 4-4. The crowd was barely breathing. And then, in the space of a few seconds, the match was decided. Eala, drawing on what she described afterward as the mental image of a stadium full of Filipinos praying for her, she actually said, in Tagalog, "Sabi kayo, ilang kaya sa inyo ang nagdadasal para sa akin," which translates as, "I thought, how many of you are probably praying for me?" Found another gear. She struck a sensational, lightning-fast passing shot winner that sent the crowd into an absolute, uncontrollable eruption. 3 match points vanished before this one had arrived. The final one did not. With the match on her racket, Alexandra Eala unleashed a monstrous, fearless forehand winner that kicked up chalk on the baseline and ended the contest in the most emphatically fitting way imaginable. 7-5 in the tiebreak. 6-1, 7-6. Done. The scream that came out of Eala in that moment was primal. It was raw. It was the release of every nerve, every doubt, every moment of pressure, every prayer offered up by thousands of her compatriots in those stands. She dropped to one knee. The stadium came apart at the seams. An entire community, stretched across thousands of miles of ocean from their homeland, screamed and wept and held each other in the stands of an arena in the United Arab Emirates. It was one of those moments that transcend sport and become something purely, profoundly human. The numbers tell the story of a monumental upset. World number 47 over world number 8. A scoreline of 6-1, 7-6, accomplished in 1 hour and 40 minutes against a former Dubai champion who had every reason to be considered a heavy favorite going into the match. But the numbers only tell half the story. The other half lives in that locker room, in those tears, in that message, in the profound mutual respect between a young woman chasing a dream and the woman whose example helped her dare to dream in the first place. The milestones are staggering in their accumulation. With this win, Eala claimed her third career victory over top 10 opponents, all of them achieved in straight sets, by the way, which is a detail that should not be glossed over. Her previous giant-killing credentials were already formidable. She had beaten Madison Keys, world number 5 at the time, and Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, during her electric 2025 Miami Open run that catapulted her onto the global tennis map. Now Paolini joins that list. 3 top 10 victories, all in straight sets, all at WTA 1000 events. The casual fan might not fully grasp the rarity of that achievement. Trust us when we say that the tennis world absolutely does. She became the first Filipino player to reach the round of 16 at the Dubai Tennis Championships since the tournament was inaugurated back in 2001. 25 years of the Dubai tournament, and no Filipino player had ever gone this far. Until now. She is also the first Filipino player to reach the round of 16 at multiple WTA Tier 1 or WTA 1000 events since the introduction of the tier format back in 1990. And most remarkably, most breathtakingly, in the context of Asian tennis history, she became the youngest Asian woman to record multiple top 10 victories at 2 or more WTA 1000 events, breaking a record previously held by Naomi Osaka. Let that land for a moment. Naomi Osaka, the most decorated Asian tennis player in the history of the women's game. A 4-time Grand Slam champion. Alexandra Eala, at 20 years and 268 days old, has surpassed a milestone that Naomi Osaka achieved at 20 years and 350 days old. The torch is not just being passed. It is being snatched and carried at full sprint. When the two players met at the net after the final point, the handshake was everything the pre-match message had promised it would be. It wasn't the perfunctory tap of racket strings or the barely there brush of palms that sometimes characterizes the post-match rituals of professional tennis. It was an embrace. Long, meaningful, genuine. Two athletes who had just spent an hour and 40 minutes trying to dismantle each other's tennis game, coming together in the knowledge that what they had shared was something bigger than the result. Paolini, who has spoken publicly in the past about how vital players like Eala are for the global growth of women's tennis, did not need to say another word. The hug said it all. Eala, still vibrating with adrenaline in her on-court interview, addressed the Filipino crowd in Tagalog, bringing down the stadium all over again. She said of the match, "All the emotions are coming because the tension was so high, especially during that second set. So I'm really happy to have gotten through. She's a great opponent, obviously being top 10 and a former champion here. So to be able to compete with her at this level is a great achievement for me. In the tiebreak, I was trying everything to keep myself in check." And then she revealed that mental image, the stadium full of Filipinos praying for her. The thought that pushed her over the line when the match could have gone either way. It was a moment of such beautiful, circular connection between an athlete and her community that it made even the most seasoned tennis journalists in the press box reach for their notebooks and forget to stay professionally detached.
So the stadium was really full. I looked up and there was Filipinos for days. So it's really such a blessing to be able to play